Welcome to the Intuitive Ascending Mind podcast with your host, Aliyah Yasmin Khan. Throughout this series, you'll learn how cultivating a growth mindset can unlock your true potential and impact every aspect of your life. Join Aliyah and her guest each episode as they dive deep into strategies for personal development and lasting transformation. Now, here's Aliyah.
Everyone, welcome to the Intuitive Ascending Mind podcast. Joining me on today's show is Martha Kartaoui. Martha has spent her time dedicated to helping individuals through mentorship. She is an author and a speaker and a coach, helping people to get over trauma and challenges in their life. And I'm so honored and so excited to have you on the show today. Welcome, Martha.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, this is very exciting. You've gone through a very fascinating journey. Can you share that?
Fascinating is a fun word.
Fascinating is a fun word because I
It
know
has been
you
a
shared a
journey.
little bit with me, so it's a fun
Yeah,
word. Yeah.
yeah. So it's a fascinating story for sure. It's been a journey. But I'll go back to the beginning so that we can kind of hit fast forward and get where we are now.
Sure.
So the acorn version of my story is I was born and raised in a dangerous religious cult. Yes, I said cult. And within the cult, everything was controlled. My thoughts were controlled. What I believed was controlled. What I ate was controlled. Where I slept, when I slept, every aspect of our life was controlled. So I escape at 26 years old, and I get out into this big, crazy world, and I'm like, I don't have the tools. I'm not equipped with the tools to navigate this world of being able to make decisions, being able to have any kind of awareness or confidence or identity. I had none of that. So I was so ill prepared coming out into this big world that because I was so isolated within the cult for that first 26 years. And this goes even deeper than that, right? From 0 to 26, a lot happens in the forming of our emotions and our safety, security, boundaries, all of those things. And I had none of those things because everything had been controlled for me. So, starting to try to navigate in a world where you have to find a job and you have to raise a family and you have to make decisions about bills and budgeting and all of those things, I had none of those tools. And so I found myself very early on numbing. And for me, numbing was alcohol, was some drugs, was sex, was trying to find and fill that void, that hole that is within your being when you're lost, right? And about 5 years out of the cult, I find that my physical body is literally breaking down. My emotions are out of control. My nervous system is, non-existent because I was always in fight or flight. So the regulation was completely non-existent. And everything was just crashing in on me. And I'm married, I'm raising a child, and I'm actually very successful at work in corporate America because I do have a work ethic. That is something that I learned within the cult. And so that's where I put all of my energy. And I became very successful, but I was empty and I was scared and I was alone and all of these things. And eventually I had to look at myself in the mirror and be like, is this my life? Is this the only thing that I have, right? And I had to really take that deep, hard look and say, I am a mess, and I don't know where to even start to unravel what is going on with me. So I did what you normally think you do, right? You go to the doctor and you hope you can get some answers. And I went to the doctor, and then they sent me to a specialist, and then they sent me to another specialist. And all they did when I went to these doctors were they just gave me a diagnosis list. You have fibromyalgia, you have migraines, you have chronic back and neck pain, you have gastrointestinal issues, you have ADHD, you have the list and the labels that were piled on me was just like, you can't help but feel like a broken, useless member of what, right? Like I was completely like lost in the overwhelm of all of these things that were told to me that I was and that I had and that and eventually I was like I must be too broken. I must be too broken. I don't and at the same time that I'm trying to get all these answers, like my life is imploding. My marriage is imploding because I couldn't navigate all of the different things that were happening and I couldn't there wasn't a pill to fix the brokenness, and so eventually I took a continuing education class, a somatics class. And there is where the light bulb went on for me. And I realized that everything was connected and everything could be traced back to my trauma. Because within the cult, that first 25 years, I was sexually abused, physically abused, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, verbally, all of it. Very, very heavy abuse had taken place. And so when I took this class, I was like, holy crap, all of this goes back to my trauma. Now what?
Wow.
And that's what started me on my healing journey.
My goodness. Wow. Ah, you hit on something that I feel like is so important. When we go through these challenges, we tend to go to the doctor, and the doctor always wants to label us with different things. So powerful, because the thing is that it's all ultimately created up here in the mind, and then you go and you're putting your trust and your belief system in the doctor, and the doctor is just going off of a hypothesis, basically, as to
Based
what
on
they,
their training. Yep.
yes, based on their training, an idea as to what they think it is. And we put so much belief into doctors, like, gosh, like I remember this situation even with my mom. Like she would put so much belief into doctors, and I actually have a belief system that steers clear of the doctor's office. Like I believe I can heal myself. I believe, like, but I had to develop that. I didn't always start out that way. But gosh, yeah, that's some heavy stuff. What was your breaking point that you said that, you know what, I have to leave the cult life behind? I want to go back to that point. Like, what was that breaking point like for you?
So it's interesting. When people ask me this question, it pains me that I didn't choose me. That's not why I left. The reason why I made my escape from the cult is because I had found my younger sister on the internet. She had separated herself from the cult years before, and we hadn't had any contact. But I found her on the internet, and we started communicating. And I found out she was pregnant with her first daughter or her first child. And something clicked in me. And I said, because of this group, I never had my aunts and uncles. I never had my extended family. I don't want to create the same thing for my sister's child. I want my sister's child to know me. I want to be part of her life. And so that was the light bulb for me, is that I don't want this to be another generation of this, right? And so I didn't make the decision for me. I was incapable of making a decision for me, but I loved my sister enough to say, I want better for her child. And that gave me courage. That gave me compassion. And that gave me this love that I was like, that fueled me. That fueled me to make my escape, to have to hide for 3 months. All the things that would transpire after the escape came from that fuel of saying, no, I want this child to know me. I want to be in this child's life because I never had that. I wonder what that would be like.
Yeah, that's so powerful. It's so powerful to be able to have that one situation, but it's such a powerful thing. It almost like I felt like it had to happen. Like that had to happen to wake you up, for a lack of better words.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Somebody there's many people that have asked me, like, if that hadn't happened, would you have eventually left? I don't know. And I don't want to ever think about the possibility of that, right? But
Yeah.
I know, as conditioned as I was, and as programmed as I was, and as controlled as I was, without an exterior thing happening like happened to me, I may have still been stuck there. Like, I still have a sister that's stuck there because she hasn't had that thing that woke her up, that brought something, life to her, right?
Yeah.
That made her see outside of the box that she's been programmed into.
Yeah. Do you think some people will wake up, or do you think some people may go through their entire life without waking up?
Um, the unfortunate answer is a lot of us go through our entire life without waking up. And that
See that?
is the sad but truth, right? Because waking up actually takes effort, and waking up actually is a choice. And waking up, actually, you have to look back and you have to reflect on how we got here in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't choose to join the cult, I was born into it.
Right.
But every day that I stayed was a choice, because I showed at age 26 I could escape, but I didn't know that that wasn't even an option, right? When you're born into that, it's all you know. You don't know that you have options, but once you do know, now you become responsible for that and understanding that. And some people just don't have the courage or don't want to be uncomfortable. We get so comfortable in being in our uncomfortable that it's scary to think about what life would be like outside of a certain situation, right? How many of us stay in situations that don't serve us and aren't aligned with who we think we are or want to be, but we stay in it because we're scared to make a change. We're scared that it might turn out badly, right? And we stay in it. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
Look around you.
Yeah. Fear is the biggest driving factor that holds people back. Like it's the biggest drive that, like, I feel like just kind of like locks them into a box. Like, they're afraid of failure. And that's really what the fear part is like, okay, well, if I go out into the world and I fail, what if I'm wrong about this? What if all of these thoughts, like, I'm sure, just flood to your head at that moment, and you're like, am I doing the right thing? Am I not doing the right thing? Ultimately, courage is what you need at that point, you know?
The what if is paralyzing,
Yeah.
right? And so many of us live in the what if, and I did for even many years after getting out of the cult. I lived in the what if, right? What if they catch me? What if they bring me back? What if, all the things, right? And then what if my marriage fails? What if, like, you live in that what if, and it is paralyzing because you cannot have courage and be in fear at the same time. Those things, you cannot be in both. You have to choose one or the other.
Yes. Yes, that's the power behind, like, mental duality. That's just something that I kind of hone in on a lot, because that's the power behind mental duality. It's the understanding of that. Yes, there's fear. Yes, there's the what if moment, but then, yes, there's also the possibility of courage. There's a possibility of taking that leap of faith. And I'm not a big hope pusher. I like hope. I just don't love hope, but I love faith. Faith to me just solidifies the ability to move, regardless of anything that could possibly go wrong. Like, it just motivates you to want to, like, push forward and say, you know what, I'm going to be faithful that this will turn out right, and that leap of faith is really what we need. At least most people need to take in order to see results too.
Right. As we know, right, when you're talking about dualities, right, the fear, that narrative of fear creates more fear,
Yep.
creates that same negative narrative.
Yeah.
And so when we have faith, the faith is believing in something unseen, but that you feel very, like it is, like it is. There is, when you have true faith, whether that's in yourself, it's in the universe, it's in God, it's in your purpose, whatever it is, when you have true faith in that and you stand on that foundation and understand that this is unrockable, this is unmovable, and I can do anything through this faith of understanding that this is who I am, who I want to be, and where I'm going. And I'm supported by said universe, God, yourself, whatever it is, right? The faith, yes, Like that's where it has to start, is and then hope comes with that, right?
Yes.
Hope and faith are so aligned. When we have faith, we have hope in a better future.
Yes.
We have faith. When we have faith, we have hope that there's more finances, financial stability coming. There's better health coming, right? But we have to take the steps. We can't just sit back and be like, I got faith, it's going to all turn out.
Right. No, faith requires action. Because if you have faith, you will take action.
Correct.
If you don't have faith, you don't take action.
Right.
That's where hope comes in. Hope is without faith. I think faith requires you to take action. Hope is like, okay, I hope it's going to turn out okay. Like, it's kind of like that hopeful state of being that
like, I hope I win the lottery, but I'm never going to buy a lottery ticket.
Right.
Well,
right.
I'm not going to win the lottery.
At which point did you realize that you wanted to mentor people and share this knowledge?
Wow. Well, there was a long, arduous journey of healing and of kind of coming into my own and doing the work to heal the younger version of myself and to gain the confidence, courage, identity, understanding, and awareness of who I was and who I was created to be. And I have to kind of rewind to something that you said a few minutes ago, and that was, going to the doctors and getting all of these diagnoses. They are looking at you from their perspective, from their education, from their specialty, but none of those doctors ever looked at me as the whole me, right? They never looked at me as the traumatized little girl that had literally been in a state of fight or flight since age 7, and that all of these things had happened to her and was now supposedly in a safe environment, but my immune system didn't know that, my nervous system didn't know that, like no part of me knew that, because I didn't know how to be in that space, right? So I had to get in touch with me. I had to do the work to go back to that little girl, and I had to heal those wounds, those traumas. I had to let them scar over. I had to do the work to get through that, right? In order to reclaim me. And I talk about this a lot in my book or on when I speak about reclaiming me and what that really meant. And that was a long, long journey. And when I think about like the pivotal moment where I finally looked at myself in the mirror and I finally recognized myself, I was 37 years old. I was 37 years old the first time I looked in the mirror and said, wow, Martha Glory, I love you. I see you. Damn, like you're amazing. You are so courageous. You are a survivor. And it's like, I see you. I was 37. And that's really a hard reality to swallow, because it took me that long to peel off all of the labels, all of the identities that others had put on me in order to get re-identified with who I was without what everybody else told me and who I was and what I was. And those labels came from cult, that my parents, society, and, those labels come from everywhere, but they didn't come from me. Mm-hmm. But I had taken them on like an identity. They had become who I was. But at 37, when I finally looked at myself in the mirror and said, no more, I get to choose who I am. I get to choose what I am, and I get to choose how I'm going to move forward. And seeing myself at that time, now that was 8 years ago, but seeing myself at that time, I was like, how many other people go through their whole life and look at themselves in the mirror and never recognize themselves? And that was painful to me. And I said, I don't know how I'm going to continue to do this, but eventually I want to help others see themselves. And that's where I am fast forward now, is that's how I decided it was time for me to start using my voice for good. It was time for me to start sharing my trauma, sharing my wounds, because now those are becoming my works, those are becoming my passion, those are becoming my purpose. And we can't overcome what we don't admit. So I had to admit from where I came so I can talk about where I'm going, and I can truly overcome that, right? Because we can't heal what we don't feel. We can't, yeah.
That's so
That was
powerful.
a lot, I know.
So powerful right there. You can't overcome what you don't admit. That's so powerful right there. Like you have to sit there, you have to sit with yourself, you have to acknowledge the pain, you have to acknowledge the suffering that you have encountered. And then you almost have to reframe it, because there's a point in which you say, okay, well, thank you for that. That taught me how to not to treat others. Thank you for that. That really it does become sort of an educational transition for you as well, because it teaches you what not to do when it comes to the treatment of others and the suppression of others' voices and their will, in essence.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about your book.
Okay, so in May of this year, I published my first book, and it's called Glory, Going All In, Cult Survivor to Courageous Warrior. And it's my cult story about growing up in the cult, and then it's my kind of overcoming and my healing journey. And then the last part of my book is the principles that I used and continue to use to continue on this healing journey, because there's never an end point in healing. Like you never get to a point where you're like, hot dog, I am healed. Like that doesn't happen. Like I'm on a healing journey for the rest of my life, not from all of that, right? Like the past, I've worked through that, but life be lifing and things will happen, right? Like things will happen in life, and they still trigger me to a degree, or they still remind me of something, or they hit me in a way where I'm like, ooh, that feels like something I need to address, right? And so I'm continuously on this healing journey, and that doesn't stop. That's just part of continuing to elevate and continuing to do the work so that I can continue to help others.
I know. I think it's amazing when trauma hits you after you've done the work and you've unpacked some of the things from the past. I think your window for dealing with trauma gets dramatically reduced too, because then you've got already like a mechanism in place that's been downloaded into the subconscious that's pretty autonomous, that when the trauma kicks back in again, it's not gonna, as long as we're alive, like just like you said, life be lifing. So as long as you're alive, there's always going to be something that's coming, that's going to come your way, that's going to present a challenge. And quite honestly, I think the more higher or elevated we get in consciousness, the bigger the challenges can be at times, just because like that's just the way that it is. It's like you have a higher level of consciousness. Now you've got to perform at a higher level, and your challenges come in at a higher level to a certain degree, and being able to confront it, deal with it, have faith through the process, and overcome those challenges is very exciting. I love that you wrote that book. I'm sure so many people will benefit from reading that story and learning that. I mean, like, you inspired the heck out of me when I heard your story. I was like, oh my goodness. Like, that is a lot to go through, and to be smiling today and to be happy and to be as accomplished as you are is a testament to the work that you have done throughout this process. How do you work when you work with clients? Like, what type of clients do you get, and like, how do you help them?
So interesting. So anytime that we commit to a journey, right, it doesn't mean that life's not going to happen. It doesn't mean that that we're not going to face challenges or obstacles. It just means that we have the tools now to overcome them more quickly and get back realigned, right? So generally what happens when I start working with somebody is we start by identifying where where they're struggling, right? Whether that's a challenge, whether that's an obstacle, or whether they are like I was and literally don't know who they are. If they don't know who they are, that's where we have to start. We have to get in touch with who they are and who they were created to be. And that is a beautiful uncovering, but it can be painful. It can be arduous. It can be, but it's also the most, when you're awakened, like that word is, it's a real thing. When you are awakened to who you are and who you were created to be, you realize how long you have been missing that part of you.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where you have to start, is you have to re-identify with self. You have to get in touch with self, and you have to fall in love with self, because the way we treat ourselves is the way we treat others. If we don't love ourselves first and completely, I can't love my spouse, I can't love my children, I can't love my job, I can't love my clients, right? It starts with self. So you have to, that's the first and foremost thing, is how do we get back in touch with self, and how do we build from there?
That's beautifully said. Absolutely. How do we get back in touch with self? What is your practice? What practices do you do to help you to stay in alignment with yourself and your purpose?
Um, that's a great question, because now it seems like second nature. Because if it doesn't feel good in here, I'm not doing it, right? Like because of my faith and because of my confidence and trust in myself and in my faith, I go here. And if it doesn't feel good, it's not in alignment. And if it feels out of integrity, it's also not in alignment, right? Because those things go hand in hand for me, integrity and alignment. So I go here. If it doesn't feel good, I don't do it. If I also have to understand how I got to this healing place that I'm in, and I continue to do the things that got me here, right? Whether that's forgiveness, or whether that's self-love, whether that's taking care of my physical body, right? I have to continue to do those things, because those aren't there's not a finish point on those either. Like, I'm never at this point where I'm like, okay, I love myself and that's all I need to. No, like, I have to continue to pour into myself. I have to continue to take care of my physical body. I have to continue to eat nutritiously, right? Because everything's connected. You can't have, a strong physical body and a poor nutritional intake, right?
Right.
Those things don't go hand in hand. The same thing with, you can't have a strong marriage if there isn't loyalty, or everything's connected. Everything's connected.
It's fascinating. And this is what I find most fascinating, is your ability to rewire your subconscious mind. I speak about this a lot, like the journey of the mind. From 0 to 7, you're just downloading information. You are pure, open subconscious. From 7 to 14, you start to analyze the information a little bit more. You start to realize false things, narratives a little bit. You start to question a little bit. And then from 14 to 21, you're developing your identity. All through those crucial years of development, like, you were pushed into a certain box, and to be able to rewrite some of those programs, I think that's what makes your story so amazing. Because, like, for listeners that are listening right now, you literally had to go back and discern truth from every stage of your life. I mean, from 0 to 7, where you're just downloading information, you had to go in there at some point and decide, is that right? Was that information that was fed to me correct? Because all of those things shape our perception, our reasoning, and it does it through memory. Like, memory locks these things in through an emotional bond. So as you've gone through and you've done the work, like, that, pretty much that's 26 years of damage that you literally had to go and undo.
Yeah.
And you undid it in a relatively short period of time. I must say that as well, because, like, most people don't get to this point as fast and as effective as you have done it. I just want to throw that out there, because, like, there's so much that you would have had to have done, because every part of your thinking life was molded in a certain direction.
Are you tired of feeling stuck? Unable to reach your personal goals? Imagine unlocking the powerful duality of your mind to propel yourself towards success. With our mental duality guide, you can finally achieve the personal development you've always desired. This guide is not just another self-help book. It's a transformative resource designed to help you harness the hidden powers of your mind, guiding you through the building blocks to create a structured approach to goal setting and achievement. What's in it for you? Clarify your goals. Learn how to define what you truly want in life. Overcome mental blocks. Identify and dismantle the barriers holding you back. Boost your confidence. Develop a stronger belief in your ability to succeed. Achieve consistent progress. Implement strategies that keep you moving forward even when challenges arise. But how do I know this is real? Countless individuals have transformed their lives using our techniques. One user, after applying the principles from the guide, reported a 91% increase in productivity and a newfound clarity in their life direction. Here's the story. Like many, they struggled with conflicting thoughts and feelings about their goals. After engaging with our guide, they learned to balance their rational thinking with emotional insight, leading to breakthroughs they never thought possible. And what are the guarantees? We stand by our guide with a 100% satisfaction guarantee. If you don't see progress within 30 days, we'll refund your purchase. No questions asked. Why now? The longer you wait, the longer your dreams remain out of reach. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Take action today and start your journey toward personal growth and achievement. What do you have to lose? Nothing but your limitations. Join the ranks of those who have discovered their potential through our mental duality guide. Act now and unlock the door to your future.
That's a great point. And yes, 13 years, I've been on this healing journey for the last 13 years, really dedicated to it. And yes, that doesn't seem like a lot of time, but when you're in it, it feels like forever, right?
Absolutely.
But I do recognize the work that I've done, and it is a complete rewiring of everything that I was ever told, everything that I ever trusted, everything that I ever believed. But there was also an amazing empowerment that came with that rewiring, right? Understanding that I got the choice to whether I was going to take this on as a belief system, because it was like I had to go back to the whiteboard and completely clear it and literally take everything, like you said, from those earliest ages and say, does this feel right for me now? Does this serve me now? And if not, bye-bye. Like, you literally have to rewire your brain. And my brain has been rewired, and the synapses have been reconnected. And it's an ongoing thing, right? Because my new belief system is still challenged when things arise. I find it most challenging with my own family, because we are all on different healing journeys. We are all in different places of our healing journeys. Even though the majority of my siblings have been out long more than I have, a lot longer than I have, they haven't done the same kind of work, but their experiences weren't the same either. So, I feel like I'm most challenged within those relationships, because I'm constantly having to check in with myself. Does this align with my belief system now? Can I meet them where they're at and not change who I know I am? Or, right? Like, it's constantly being challenged. But when you do the work to rewire, and you really stand firm in the authenticity that you've created, that you know and feel and are and be, right? Then it just becomes second nature. Yeah. Because then you check in with the integrity, you check in with the alignment, and you say, this does or doesn't feel good. And I can trust that now, because I trust me. Yeah. I trust God. I trust my faith. I trust who I've become, right? Because it is a becoming. And I'm constantly in that phase of becoming the highest version of myself.
I love that. So beautifully said. Love that. when we when we come into this world, I really think that we have the most challenging relationships with bloodline, like parent-child, and then the second most challenging is siblings. And it's almost like it almost like it almost is there to like shape you, like to shape you in a certain manner, because that's what I uncovered in my own self. I had a different method of thinking from my mom. I probably have a similar method of thinking to my dad. I feel like he was a lot like a very calm person, and I have that naturally. And I have a different method of thinking to my sister. And like I can use a word that I wouldn't regard as offensive, but if I say it to her, she would regard it as offensive. So I have to carefully choose the words that I use, because she'll dissect everything at times. And it has led to me being more conscious. It has led to me like choosing things differently as I'm going to. But it's interesting because I really do think that family gives us the greatest challenge. The greatest challenge is the family. And the most rewarding, it's actually the most rewarding, because the experiences that you have with family is really what molds and shapes us. It's not so much with strangers. Strangers kind of drift into our lives, and they'll probably drift out. And then we have our earthly family, people that drift in and they're just there. They are just like staples. You feel that instant connection to them. And it's just like a lifelong type of relationship. Even without you intending it to be that way, you just find yourself into your earth family type of relationship.
Yes, and what you just shared resonates so deeply, just from my own practice, right? But what I've also seen is that adversely, when we become the highest version of ourselves or a higher version of ourselves and continue to elevate, we can't help but to be the ripple effect in a positive way for our family.
Yeah.
And I have seen that over and over in my siblings, in my parents, even in my earthly family, right? My friend circles, my community circles. When we are constantly committed to this journey of self and of elevation and consciousness, we can't help but to be that ripple effect, because the best thing that we can do for ourselves is to be ourselves,
Yeah.
because nobody else can be us.
Right.
There's only us, right? And so when others, it's almost like others get permission by seeing us being that authentic, that vulnerable, that honest, and that gives them permission to be them,
Yeah.
to be their own, right? To share. I see that all the time when I speak, is people will say, thank you for sharing, because now I feel like I can tell you this and I've never told anybody this.
Yeah.
I gave them permission by being vulnerable, by sharing my own story, by sharing my own pain, gave them permission to say, I went through the same things, or I went through something similar, and I've been too ashamed to ever share that, right? It gives permission. It's that ripple effect. And you never know how that affects them on their healing journey, right? Whether that's one conversation, or they become a client, or they become whatever, right?
Yeah.
You just, by being who you were created to be, you give others permission to do the same.
Absolutely. And I think when you give them that presentation of, hey, these are my life challenges and I made it through. Like I'm here, I made it through. You give them that hope and that faith that they can start to develop in themselves, because a lot of times for the most part, they're thinking, me, this has happened to me. I'm isolated, I'm separated. These are my challenges in life, and nobody understands. And that nobody understands means, it's almost victim mentality. It's just me. Nobody
Yeah.
understands what I'm going through. But the truth of the matter is, we all have different challenges, every single one of us, throughout the course of our lives. And those challenges are placed there for us to wake up. That's why they're there. The tougher the challenge, the more the awakening, from my perspective, the more like entrapped you are, the more you're going to break free, because life is about that dualistic balance. And sometimes the individuals that are not challenged as much think that they're challenged a lot, but they're not challenged as much, and they fall into that victim state as a result of it. They're actually not challenged as much, which I find it fascinating, because some of the individuals that I work with, some of them have not gone through a lot of trauma in comparison to something that I've experienced, or maybe something like you've experienced. I don't even think I've gone through quite what you've gone through, because that seems a lot more traumatic to me. But they still can't shift or move out. Like, their shifting is slower versus somebody that has, you really push yourself to get out of it, to set yourself free from it.
So, something that I came to understand a long time ago that has really served me is that understanding that pain is pain and trauma is trauma, right?
Yeah.
There's no sense in saying, well, my trauma is worse than your trauma or your whatever, right? Like, there's no way to measure trauma. The worst things that we've been through are the worst things that we've been through. And you can't compare, because if somebody's worst thing that they've ever been through is that their parents went through a divorce at a very pivotal age, that's the worst thing that they've ever been through, and their life fell apart at that moment, right? The worst thing that I've ever been through is, whatever, right? I could list a whole bunch of them, but those pains are the same, because pain is pain. It's still the worst pain you've ever been through. Therefore, there's no way to measure it, right?
Right.
What we can measure is what we do with it, the choices that we make from it, how we decide that it's going to define us or not define us. Those are the things that we can measure, right?
Yes.
Whether we decide to take the victim mentality or we decide to take the warriorship mentality, right? A warrior says, you know what? Yeah, that was really crappy. That sucked. That sucked really bad. And that I feel every bit of that, but it's not going to define me. I have more to do in my life. There's got to be more. And I'm going to find ways to forgive, to move on, to learn from that, to elevate from that. And then there's the victim mentality where you say, for me, this really sucks. And I'm going to stay stuck in here because nobody understands me. And this is lonely. And this is what I've become accustomed to. And I'm going to stay here. Right.
Yeah.
You can survive something and not be a survivor.
Yeah.
Right.
I think sometimes people want pain, like they get addicted to pain.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's all they know, or it becomes that dopamine response, right?
Yeah.
And I did that a lot when I first got out of the cult, is because my life was so chaotic in the cult, and my life was so traumatic in the cult, that I got out of the cult and then created new chaos. I created new drama. I created new, because my nervous system needed chaos, needed trauma, needed drama, right? And so I created that in my marriage. I created that at work. I created that in my home life. I created that in my family relationship, right? Because I didn't know how not to be in that cycle. And it literally is a self-serving cycle. I was addicted to trauma because it's all I knew. It was just as bad as being addicted to drugs or alcohol or sex or any of those other things. I was addicted to the cycle because I knew nothing else. So when you break out of that and you realize, I don't really need that, and actually that is yuck, and that doesn't serve anybody, right? And you look back and you're like, I wasted so much time, but I had to learn from it.
It's interesting because you do kind of look back and say, I wasted so much time, but without the trauma, you wouldn't have been able to recognize yourself in the process, I think that every single time we endure a challenge of something we have to remove from the subconscious mind, we shed in that process. And every single time you had to go in, because like I said earlier, from 0 to 7, you were just downloading. From 7 to 14, you started to discern a few things probably settled in, and you're like, not too sure about that. And then 14 to 21, you start to develop your own identity, which probably is being pushed upon you as well. And then it's okay, welcome to the real world, when you made that commitment to leave. And that subconscious program of the trauma would definitely follow you out. There's no doubt about it, because we only produce the life that we're trained through our perception and our reasoning and our memory to produce. We don't produce anything else other than what we're trained to produce. So when you see people are angry all the time or are frustrated all the time, like, I have an abundance of compassion for them, because they learned that behavior from someone and they didn't know that they had the ability to change that behavior. And it's when they do the self-reflection, when they do the work, when they realize that, when realization kicks in and they realize that that behavior does not serve them, it's only then they will ever make the decision to change.
It all goes back to choice, right?
Yeah.
When you don't know that you have the choice, you don't know that you have the choice. But once you become aware, then it opens up this whole new world of possibilities. It opens up this whole new world of, whoa, if I have control and choice over X, then I must also have control and choice over Y, right?
Mhm.
And then everything starts like this whole like discombobulation happens where you're like, okay, I have to sort through this. Like, what else do I believe that isn't necessarily true and that I have I can make a different choice on, right? And that for me, it became like this snowball effect of, oh, I get the choice. What? I get to choose, and then my whole world opened up because I did have the ability to choose. I did have the choice of whether to stay stuck in that rat race and in that roller coaster of emotional distress that I was causing. And so when I made the decision to get off the roller coaster and say, no, like, I have to retrain my nervous system, I have to rewire my brain, I have to go and sit back with all the trauma and I have to deal with it and I have to work through it and I have to figure out what is mine and what isn't in order to get in touch back with self. Like that, it opens up when you realize there's choice.
Yeah. Choice is a big thing for us to realize. We really do have a choice. I think we're trained to think that we don't have a choice through life. Like, people try to push the idea that you're just a victim, just, a leaf blowing in the wind versus being a tree firmly planted upon the earth. And for that reason, they try to control your narrative in the process.
Yeah.
I love what you do. I love what you do to help people to change and shift. I love the way that you look at life and you look at what you've done, the changes you've made along the way. What is some advice you would give to someone? Let's just say someone was in a cult right now. What would be your piece of advice if they were listening to this right now?
Change is scary, but you can do it, and you're way stronger than you can imagine. But you have to tap into your strength. You have to tap into your faith, right? And it feels, in life, challenges feel insurmountable, and leaving a cult or something that doesn't serve you, and that can be a bad marriage, that can be a abusive family member, whatever, right? Like, trauma doesn't just come from a cult, it comes from every facet of our lives. But I would say the same thing. If you are feeling isolated, if you are feeling controlled, if you are feeling that you don't have a say, if you are being told what to believe, think, or feel, you are in a bad situation. Regardless, it doesn't have to be a cult, right? If your autonomy is being taken from you, this is not what God created. This is not serving you, and it will never serve you. So I just beg that you find the courage within yourself and find the strength to say no just once, because all it does is you have to say no once. I didn't know I had the ability to say no either, right? And choose you. And that in itself will bring you courage, will bring you empowerment, and will bring you a solidarity within yourself to give you the strength to make the next move. And then don't alienate yourself. Don't isolate yourself again. Understand that there is community out there. There is healing to be had. There are people that will hold your hand and guide you if you ask for help. So often people get out of cults and then say, well, nobody's going to understand what I've been through because nobody's talking about it. And so nobody's going to get it, but we do get it. I have a community that says we get it, right? So
that's wonderful. You hit on another thing that I wanted to kind of revisit too, is this belief system that we put into doctors. I think belief system is something that's so powerful, and a lot of times we don't guard our beliefs. We don't develop our beliefs ourselves. We allow the pushing of other people's beliefs onto us without determining, is this a beneficial belief for me? Will this lead me to a desired outcome? And those are some of the questions that I ignite people to think about. Like, does your belief lead to a desirable outcome, or is your belief a disabling belief? Will it block you from experiencing unconditional love, unconditional forgiveness, or something along the lines of that, or peace in your life? Will your belief block you from harmony, or will it move you towards harmony? Because see, I think that, thoughts are created up here, feelings are created in the heart. The marriage of the thought and the feeling becomes an emotion, which is energy in motion. But belief is the fuel we put in the car to get us to the desired destination. So if the beliefs are not in alignment with the thoughts and the feelings, all three of those have to be in perfect synergy to get to a desired outcome. That's when you're actually in the manifestation stage in your life to create the outcome. And I don't like the word manifest, but I use it from time to time. But to be the creator, to get into alignment with your life purpose, to be the creator in your life, it requires the thought, feeling, emotion, and belief to be on the same page.
We as humans have to question everything, right? When we are told not to question, there's probably a reason for that, because we are trying to be controlled, whether that's from our government, whether that's from our religious leaders, whether that's from, whatever. In our job, like if we don't have the ability to question, and for us to be able to say this feels good or this like makes sense, that's no, right? We were created with the ability to do this. Why would we be created with the ability to do this and then not do it? Yeah. And then we wonder why it doesn't feel good, or we don't understand it. It's all energy, all of it. The thought, the words that come out of our mouth, right? That's why when I use this all the time with small kids, is that if you say, I'm going to have a crappy day because I woke up and I fell off the bed, right? That is energy. And if you say, I'm going to have a crappy day because I fell off the bed, guess what? You're going to have a crappy day. It has nothing to do with that you fell off the bed. It's right. Because you could have also fallen off the bed and go, well, that hurts, but you know what? I'm going to have a great day. Watch.
Yes.
Like, it's all energy. The words that come out of our mouth create our reality. The thoughts we think create our reality. And then it goes in here and it says, well, does that reality feel good? Okay, I want that desired outcome. I'm going to have a great day regardless of falling off the bed. And that, like, kids get that. And they're like, oh, man, I better watch what I say. Yes, the words we say have so much power. Like, I get crazy geeky about this kind of stuff because it is really that simple, and we complicate the crap out of all of this. It's really not that complicated. Like, it's really simple if we just allow it to be simple.
It's really, it's the simplest of things. Like, honestly, like I can tell you, to live this lifestyle is way easier than it is to live. Because here's the thing about a negative thought. You're going to get that negative thought. You're going to think the negative thought. You're going to feel the negative feeling. And then you're going to create a problem. Now you have to think of a way to go out and feel the feelings that you can solve that problem. If not, that problem lingers in your life until you can come up with the solution of it. That's the result result of a negative experience. Now, a positive experience, or even if a negative thought creeps in, you neutralize it in your mind, you switch it over to a positive thought, you adjust your feeling to a positive feeling, and then you create a positive experience. The positive experience should just be your everyday life. It shouldn't be the negative, because the negative, whether you're aware of or not, you're constantly creating. Negative or positive, it doesn't matter. You are the creator through thoughts, through feelings, through emotions, through beliefs. You are the creator of the experiences that you experience. So you can't not guard your words. Like, you just can't.
Yeah. Yeah. And I get this a lot when somebody will say, well, how am I supposed to feel any way other than the way that I feel when blah, blah, blah did whatever they did, or my parents are always arguing, or my spouse is always nagging me. How am I supposed to feel anyway? And it's like, okay, I hear what you're saying. And no, we don't have control over that other person, but you do have control over your reaction to that person, to what that person is saying, right? You do have control over that reaction. So what if, hypothetically speaking, what if instead of the nagging husband, nagging wife conversation, right? What if you said, hey, wife, husband, I hear what you're saying, but I'm going to look at this in a positive way. I believe we can overcome this. I believe that, yes, this is an obstacle or a challenge, but how about we look at it this way and just try it this way, this time. Just try it. Can you get on board with me with that? First of all, that's going to put a stop to them, because they're going to go, what? You're questioning my negativity? And that's going to make them think for a second. And that's actually a good thing. That's called an interrupter. Yeah. We need interrupters. Yeah. We need interrupters in our own minds when our mind goes left and we need to be going right. We need to interrupt that thought, right? You were just talking about that. We have to be able to interrupt that. And so they try it and they're like, oh, you're actually right. That worked. Well, let's try that again, right? And that's how you start to rebuild, and that's how you start to rewire that it doesn't have to be that way because it's always been that way. Yeah. That's what so often we get stuck in. Well, it's always been that way, so it's always going to be that way. She's always going to be a negative Nancy because she's always been a negative Nancy. Choice.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's fascinating about it is that they say my feelings. Well, whose feelings is it? It's my feeling. Okay, then my feelings can change because it's my feelings. I can do whatever I want with my feelings.
Right.
I can go out, I can go get a massage, I can put myself back in a good mood. And there were things that when I was first mastering me, there were things that I did for myself that I set as a default, that I said, if I ever got upset, these are the things I'm going to do. And I put specific places that I like to be at. So maybe I go for a walk in the park, or maybe I go do this. But certain things that I did that I said, this is my default for me, for my feelings, so that I can adjust my feelings I did this for probably years while I was adjusting myself through the process of growth, through personal growth and development. Because it is my feelings. And if I can't change my feelings, the fascinating thing about it is that we give control to another human to navigate,
decide how we feel.
Feelings.
Right. Why
would we do such a thing? They're not capable of navigating their own feelings. We expect them to navigate my feelings. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. No. We have to create that self-regulation ourselves.
And that's the same thing that goes with habit change, right? We can't create a new habit without having anchors in creating that new habit. Yeah. So if I say that I am a non-smoker, right, but yet I still smoke one cigarette a day, well, I'm still a smoker. Right. So I have to replace that with something else that serves me and keeps me in alignment with that. For me, when I quit smoking, I had to suck on Tic Tacs, right? Like I had to do something else to get me through those cravings, to rewire my brain that says I'm a non-smoker. Right. I do not smoke any longer. I can be a Tic Tac eater. That's okay, right? I'm no longer a Tic Tac eater either, because now I don't need that. But if you're trying to make a change, you have to either interrupt it
Yes.
and be able to stop it before it goes where you don't want it to go, or you have to replace it with something that is in alignment with who you want to be.
Right.
Those are the only two options that you have in order to stay the course, or you will be derailed and you'll go back to what's comfortable.
Yeah.
And what is comfortable is often is what doesn't serve you.
Yeah.
But you're just too scared of being uncomfortable for a short amount of time to get to the place that you will be more served and in alignment and integrity.
Yeah, absolutely. So well said. So well said. You do have to disrupt it. You have to disrupt it. You have to have that hunger, that desire, that fortitude. You have to be committed to the change too, because it's easy to default. The subconscious wants to default. It does
Ego.
not
Yeah.
want to keep you. It does not want to develop a new system. You really have to. I actually developed a system for clients. It's called the OWL system. And this system, like, it's bring your observation to the desired outcome. Write about the desired outcome. Listen to things that move you to the desired outcome, and speak as though you are at the desired outcome. If you can get all four of those from a sensory perspective, all four of those into alignment, you get to the desired outcome. There's no way that you will fail from getting to the desired outcome. The question is, are you committed enough to bring your visual attention constantly to your desired outcome, writing about it? A lot of people, they will start writing and then they stop. And I'm like, writing is so powerful. Listening is so powerful. Shutting down. Sometimes you have to isolate from certain people. You love them. You can send them all the love in the world, but you have to isolate, because every time they come and they spew a little bit of negativity, they're programming your subconscious. They come, they spew a little bit of negativity, they're programming your subconscious. They push their negative experiences onto you. They shape your perception. They shape your perception to believe that their negative experiences could become your negative experiences. And it does not have to be that way. Whatever they've encountered, they've created. They were the active creator. They may not be aware of it, but they were the active creator. So negative or positive, they had some level of creation in what they experienced. So the only way to guide someone is to listen to them and then share with them how they can not experience such experiences again, how they can rewire themselves to not experience those experiences again. Other than that, they're going to run the same programs. I know people that have been running this, like, a negative program for like 60, 70 plus years of their life. Like, they just continuous in this loop. And if you attempt to break it, it's so deeply embedded in the subconscious that they just can't even comprehend how to make the shift, how to make the change.
But don't you think that it really, if we really simplify it, don't you think that it really comes down to that you do not feel that you are worthy of something better, or that you do not feel that you deserve anything better? For me, when I realized that that was a limiting belief of mine, that was crazy powerful. And I see that all the time, is that you can say things, but when you don't believe that you deserve or believe that you are worthy of, you will always cap out.
Yeah.
You will always cap out, right? Because that's not true alignment. So I hear people say, I want this, I'm working really hard towards this. And then you really start working with them and you understand, well, do you really think that you can do that? Well, no, but I'm hoping that this person can help me. Well, you don't believe that you can do that? Well, if you don't believe that you can do that, guess what? You're never going to do that.
Right.
And because you can't, somebody else can help with the tools and help with the resources and help with, helping you address the limiting beliefs. But if you don't do the work, and you don't have that belief system that says, I am worthy of my desire, and I deserve my desire, you will never get to AK desire ever.
Yeah.
That will limit you for always, right?
Yep. You bring it back to worthiness, and worthy, I will tell you, I had a fairly good a good grasp on my mindset for the most part for quite a few years. I've spent many, I probably spent my entire life developing my mindset, but I had a pretty good grasp on it. And I remember a couple years back, I went to go write the statement, I am worthy. And the word worthy is a very easy word to write. It's not a complicated word. I spelt it wrong. I wrote it incorrectly. I like it wasn't even clear and visible the third time I tried to write it. And I was like, this is so weird. My subconscious, through the process of writing, my subconscious was fighting me because it didn't believe the statement I was writing. I am worthy. And since then, I forced myself to write it over and over and over and over and over again to rewire my subconscious. You see, in the past, I had to do the same thing. I was in a relationship that I didn't feel supported in. And I had to rewrite, I am supported, I am supported, I am supported, I am always supported. I'm supported in every way. And writing it allowed me to activate the support, and it shifted in support. So I always felt supported, but I didn't realize that I missed the mark on worthy, right? So I thought it was fascinating that you brought up worthy, because worthy was something I actually had to go and address on a personal level to develop, because it was not something I think we overlook worthiness. Like we don't understand how powerful it is in our life.
Yeah. I have a very similar story about worthy. And I was going through some cognitive therapy, and we were talking about the I am, the I want, the I need, the and so we were doing a worthy exercise. And I had to write, I'm worthy. And she wanted me to list like 5 things that I was worthy of. And I literally started writing worthy and couldn't finish the word. And I just started bawling. And like, I've been on this, I was about at this time, I'd been on the journey for a couple of years,
Mhm.
but it was the programming that I wasn't worthy of anything, right? I wasn't worthy of a life outside of the cult, right? And then I had survivor's guilt on top of that, because then I carried around that my sister was still there. I carried around that people that I grew up with were still there. I carried this baggage of I can't be worthy because somebody else or something else or another situation or circumstance. And so that was a huge, like, hard thing for me to unravel and to kind of like rewire that whole identity of worthiness.
Yeah,
Because I didn't realize that although I had started to like me, to even love me, worthy and love are 2 separate things.
they are. They
And
are very
it
different.
took me a long time to understand my worth.
Wow. Yeah, I am worthy. I am trusting was another one that took me a while to overcome. I grew up in New York, and it just was not like a very trusting environment that I lived in, that I was subconsciously wired to. And I had to work on trust. I had to work on developing trust towards others. Like I had to see people in pure light, not realizing that my consciousness, the way that I view others, is going to activate those particles in the manner in which I look at them. So you could actually activate trust in an untrusting person just
Yeah.
because you have the capacity to only see them through that light,
Yeah.
which really wields a lot of power to the humans if they understand that.
Right. Yeah,
So
absolutely. That's how
it's
we feed narcissism.
yeah, yep. We look at them through that lens.
Lens.
Yes.
Yep.
And if we only shifted the lens, like I really look at it as though there's a series of different glasses that you can look at the world through. And if you put on one and you look at the world through a negative experience, all things that you're going to see, you're going to be bringing your attention to those negative experiences over and over and over again until you figure out, take the glasses off and put a different pair on. Put no glasses on. Try to see the world for what it really is, and just acceptance. Acceptance. Yes, there are good people. Yes, there are bad people, but I don't believe there's bad people. I think there's bad programming that impacts people. Like it's bad mindsets that impact people. And
Yeah,
I
I was having this conversation with somebody yesterday. I don't think that anybody is born inherently evil.
Yeah.
It's the programming, it's the things that happen to us that we don't heal from that create evil.
Yeah.
And if you look all through history, right? Like, and then it's then the generational cycle that happens, and we pass it down and we pass it down and we pass. And when you get that understanding, or when you're enlightened to that, and you're like, oh, holy crap, and you start looking back at your family, you start looking back at your grandparents, you start looking back at, right? And just on a familial level. And so, but I now take that into every person that I meet, and I understand, okay, this isn't about me. I'm not going to take this personally if it's, adverse, right? This is something they have been programmed to believe about themselves. This has nothing to do with Martha Glory.
Yeah.
And there is power in that when you can detach those things and understand, this isn't mine. This is something they're dealing with.
Yeah. It's so powerful. It's so powerful. What are your future goals?
Wow, that's a really cool question. So I say that, like, I'm 45 now, and I am living the best years of my life. Like, the best years of my life are in front of me, versus behind me. Like, everything that is behind me has been the foundation for what's in front of me. And I'm super excited about just continuing to meet people where they're at and helping to elevate the consciousness of survivors and of battle angels, and understanding that we aren't our trauma. We aren't our past. Like, we get to redefine who we want to be moving forward. And, I'm writing another book right now, which is really exciting. I'm, continuing to speak. I'm continuing to do events, in-person events. So I have several events coming up next year. Like, the sky's the limit. I just want to continue to make a positive impact, bring love and light everywhere I go, and feel like help one person feel less lonely every time that I get the chance. So
I love that. So beautiful. Martha Kartaoui, thank you so much for being on the show today. Peace and blessings. I hope you guys found this useful.
Thank you so much. This was so much fun.